Hey guys, how it's going? As usually, sorry for the delay as I mentioned already, this is the first stream and there will definitely be some technical issues, and there were some technical issues. Like, I did prepare the Zabbix installation, of course, for the stream. Well, not really, I just had idea to start it from Docker containers and try to start it like 10 minutes before the stream and it actually failed. I'm not sure why. Just it seems like the database were crashing, and let me switch it to here. So yeah, basically we had a lot of issues with the Zabbix, and despite the fact that I did not install Zabbix for quite a while, I managed to install it from the packages in like 5 minutes, maybe 7, just copy pasting the commands from the zabbix.com page, which is probably a good thing for our guide on how you can actually install the Zabbix. The bad news for you viewer guys is, I don't know why, but I think that because of maybe the title of the video and the posts at LinkedIn, many of you thought that today is the actual release date of the Zabbix 6.0. At least somebody wrote it in the comments that perhaps I know something and the Zabbix will be released today. So as you already noticed, not really, right? And but it's pretty soon. You don't have to wait for a long time. And please also let me know in the comments if everything is good with the audio. I just see that it's sometimes spiking a bit red, so probably I should make it a little bit more silent or just move this away. That was me. Yeah, so it's not today. And also, like, the topic for conversation is migration, and audio is good. Yeah, let me test actually one another thing. So yeah, see, so we can interact with each other. So if you have something to say or just to ask, sure, do that in the chat. I have everything on the screen and we can bring you in the front. Yeah, sounds and looks good. Thank you. So about a migration, initially I had also idea to like prepare full installation of the Zabbix on, I don't know, Centos 7, which probably is the most popular one, and then do the migration for the Centos 8, or sorry, not the Centos 8, but Oracle Linux 8. But again, I didn't know what to expect from this first stream, and I ended up thinking that perhaps there will be quite a lot of questions and we will want to talk about all the different things about the Zabbix, and there will not be many time to do actual CLI stuff in the shell. So instead of the actual hands-on on the migration, we'll try to talk about a theory and what you need to keep in mind and what that is important. And in the end, like, if this is something new to you, you should actually understand that it's not that complicated in a matter of like technical stuff. You don't have to be super pooper administrator to do the migration. And I'll probably open a notepad so that we write down all the things that we need to keep in mind. Like, first of all, why do we need to migrate at all, right? Let me zoom this in. And why do we need to upgrade comes together with the Zabbix 6.0. So, by the way, if you haven't noticed, so we finally added a good search in the documentation that is not, I'll zoom in, that is not using Google anymore. So we can try go to the Zabbix 6.0 development and search for requirements. And there we go. So internal search works very fast, and there is a little bit of fine-tuning required to add weights for the pages, but it is pretty good. So this problem is closed. And talking about the requirements, so basically the fact is that the CentOS 7 is not supported, and not only with the release of the Zabbix 6.0, basically the Zabbix 5.0 was the last one. Thomas, I'm not sure about a connection. I think that everything is good on my side. At least everything shows like healthy, and we're on a 0.5 gigabit connection. So I don't really know, man. So this is the first stream. I hope that everything is good on my side. And yeah, so CentOS 7 was not supported with Zabbix 5.2 and Zabbix 5.4, but it may not be a big big trouble, a big thing for many installations, because those were not an LTS versions, right? So many were sitting on the 5.0, and now when the 6.0 will be released very soon, I will say like that, many companies and the Zabbix users are also thinking about moving to the Zabbix 6.0, which also means that you have to upgrade your system, right? CentOS 7 doesn't work. And a while ago, I think it was a year ago, when everybody started to moving to CentOS 8, and remember the Red Hat announcement. So the CentOS 8 was, they basically announced that it is supported till the end of 2021, and for the last 2 months, basically, the CentOS 8 is also not supported. And a couple of days ago, I think it was in the middle of the last week, the Red Hat actually disabled the official repositories for the CentOS 8. So you are not able to use it. You can, of course, add some, I don't know, community mirrors list or something like that, but that is not for the production. Why this happened? So, well, there is a CentOS stream, and also the Rocky Linux was formed. Yeah, and CentOS stream is sort of like, I personally think that it's like a beta testing for the Red Hat official one, which does requires the licensing. And probably, despite the fact that the Red Hat is stating that it is fully tested, you should not be worried about it, it's like not safe or whatever. I don't know. I would personally not want to move my production instance or whatever to the CentOS stream. And that's why many people started to think about migration options. So like, where can we actually move? And of course, Zabbix supports many distributions. Where can we find? So supported platforms. I don't remember where it was, but basically what we're talking about, the Red Hat, which does requires the license, Oracle Linux, Debian, Ubuntu, Rocky Linux also works. It's just a clone of the Red Hat currently, but it's not really tested internally, so on your own fear and risk, but the packages from the RHEL do work. Recommendation from the Zabbix is basically to use Oracle Linux or Red Hat if you have a license, but with the Red Hat, keep in mind that if you have a high availability setup, so some sort of HA cluster, in the Red Hat 8, you also have to buy additional license for the internal utilities like PCS, Sync, and stuff like that, if you want to run a HA cluster on Linux utilities. If you want to run the new Zabbix 6.0 built-in native high availability for the Zabbix server only, then you're good with just regular license of the Red Hat 8. And another alternative is free, so Oracle Linux 8 currently, which in my opinion is the best option. I myself have here Oracle Linux 8. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Debian or Ubuntu or whatever else. I'm not planning to start a holy war about why I don't like it and why I do not recommend it. That's just my preference. If you like the Debian, of course you are able to use it for your testing or whatever else, and yeah, it's gonna work. And then what's then? So how can we actually move in terms of like what should we do with the operating system itself? So we are sitting on a CentOS 7 or CentOS 8. The question about any Ubuntu version restriction. So I'm actually cannot find right now in the documentation. There was requirements, and there we go. So Ubuntu 20.04 or Ubuntu 18.04. There you go. And basically all these restrictions for the versions are just, this is wrong, are just to support the requirements and the dependency of the LTS version. Think about it, the short-term support version like Zabbix 5.4 is basically supported till the next release, which is roughly like 6-8 months perhaps. And the LTS version is supported for 5 years. So even after like 4 years and a half, Zabbix has to make sure that the software is functional on the supported distribution, on the supported server Linux version. And of course, it is not a good idea to like stop supporting some versions in the middle of the release. That's why some of these requirement decisions have to be made right with the release of the 6.0. And so getting back, like if we are on this CentOS 7 or 8, which definitely is the most popular choice for all the Zabbix users for some reason, and what should we do? So we have, we figure out this, how to get the server. There are actually migration scripts, and if we choose Oracle, CentOS to Oracle Linux, I'm sure there is switching from CentOS, hands-on example. Yeah, there should be download CentOS to Oracle Linux, or just a shell script. You run it on your CentOS machine. Script can switch CentOS 6, 7, or 8. And basically that's it. I've tried it once on the CentOS 7. I think I have even a video about it, like a year or something old. And it sort of worked, but not really. So there were some problems, some error messages about a kernel when you're booting up the system, but it kind of works. I would actually just do it a simple way. Instead of trying to convert our existing CentOS machine to the Oracle Linux, I would just spin up a new server with the Oracle Linux 8 or anything else that you prefer. So we have existing Zabbix instance up and running. Doesn't matter on which version. Doesn't matter what databases are those 3 servers or everything in 1 server, 2 servers, whatever. We just spin up a new, let's say, Oracle Linux 8 machine, and then also think about your existing architecture. If you have server and front end on, let's say, virtual machine or physical machine A, and then the database on the virtual machine B, which is best practice and a recommendation to have at least the database on a separate server. Then probably you want to keep the same setup on your new instance, your migrated instance. So if we talk about a database, technically you can leave your database engine on the same, let's say, CentOS 8. If you're not worried about support of the Linux itself, of the distribution, you can just add official MySQL repository. I will give MySQL as example. Keeping in mind requirements of the database. So for the MySQL, it is starting with 8.0. Yeah, so 8.0x. And if you have a CentOS 7 or on CentOS 8, I think the default one is 8.0. But just make sure that you have 8.0 version, because still there are a lot of users, especially on the CentOS 7, sitting on some MariaDB 5.6, simply because when you type in yum install MySQL, it automatically downloads very old MariaDB, which is not good. So check your database version. If it's outdated, then just upgrade your database engine, which is a little bit outside of the let's say Zabbix installation, but still it's not very complicated. And what comes with a Zabbix? So let's say the Zabbix server, front end, and yeah, that's it. So we need to move them to the Oracle Linux 8 in my example, right? And how to do that, how to take this all existing installation of the Zabbix with the built-in packages, all the configuration, hosts, data, items, triggers, events, whatever else, and move it to some other server. For somebody who is not like familiar with the Zabbix, it may seem like very complicated task, something that is, I don't know, better find somebody who has experience with it, but absolutely not. If we take my beloved one, Microsoft Paint, and basically try to draw like what a Zabbix actually is, so there is a server part, there is a front-end part, and there is a database part. Even if we have them all in, let's say, one single virtual machine or physical machine, doesn't matter. And we need to migrate our Zabbix. Do we need to worry about Zabbix server? Not at all. We can just forget about it. Do we need to worry about our front-end? Not at all. This is the only thing that we need to worry about. This is the database, and in our database we have all the configuration data, all the history data, all our items, triggers, dashboards, graphs, everything. Everything that you can see in the front end, everything that your Zabbix server is doing is stored in the database. And the only thing when you need to worry about, like, what should we do with our Zabbix front end or the Zabbix server is if you have the customized sources. Let's say you've edited the front end and you have some, I don't know, some custom front end, right? With some custom pages, maybe some custom reporting. Then, of course, you need to, well, first of all, you need to think like what modifications do you have and are you able to copy paste them to the 6.0 sources? Well, 99% that you won't be able to do that, and you will have to adopt your patches to the source code of the Zabbix frontend 6.0. For the Zabbix server, again, if you just install from the packages or you compile from the sources for some reason, or you're running them, I don't know, as a Docker container, you don't need to worry about. If you have patched sources, for some reasons, it's actually hard to imagine for me why would nowadays somebody want to patch the sources of the Zabbix server. Then again, you need to think like, how can I adopt this code to the Zabbix 6.0? So we have a database. Let's say this will be our CentOS 8, and then we have this new machine with the Oracle Linux in place. And only thing that we care about in our migration is how to move this database to our new installation. What is the recommendation for database for big environments? I'm thinking of timescale DB. So this is a very popular question, and the answer usually is very simple. Choose database engine to which you are more familiar, because this brings a lot of issues to the Zabbix user. So somebody without a big experience, without the knowledge, without Zabbix certificates of the trainings, start to use Zabbix, and they don't follow any best practices. They, I don't know, start doing that with a MySQL. They reach, let's say, 1,000 new values per second, and they notice that their server is like lagging behind. There are gaps in the graphs, a lot of slow queries. And they start to think like, okay, my SQL is very bad, so I guess it's time to move to the Postgres. And they also check the forum, and somebody says that with the Postgres, there's way better performance. So they do the migration, and it's not that complicated. Again, I have also the video for the Postgres migration in my channel. And they spin it up, and most likely the results will be the same. So there's really no best performance-wise database engine, as long as you know what you're doing, as long as you do all the configuration tuning, because this is very funny, but still very often the main issue is that a Zabbix admin or user, call him however you want, is running on a default empty database configuration file. They're just throwing the memory on the database server. They might have like 64 gigs of the RAM, and none of that is actually utilized by the database simply because he have not specified even the InnoDB buffer pool size parameter in the my.cnf. And so we have very good hardware, but it is not utilized by a database. If you do the tuning, proper tuning, like if you have multi-core processor, add a NUMA CDL for your database, fill in the config file, prepare your file system for this high traffic which is caused by the Zabbix, then you will not really feel any difference performance-wise between whether the supported database is MySQL, MariaDB, or Postgres, or timescale is a little bit different story though. You mentioned the timescale, and the biggest benefit of the timescale database is, first of all, compression and native partitioning. So partitioning is something, again, absolutely different. So we're getting a bit of away from the migration part. We already talked that everything is stored inside the database, including the history. And by default, there is an internal process called Housekeeper, which is responsible to clean the database for any data that is older than our retention period. So let's say if we decide to keep history for 30 days, and let me actually do some front-end stuff just so it makes visually more pleasant. So general and housekeeping. So let's say we decide that we want to keep where it is enable trends and history. So override everything. We want to keep it only for 30 days. So all the data that will be older than 30 days will be deleted by the housekeeper. But this works only on the small installations. And when you start to grow and when you reach multiple thousand new values per second, it might happen much faster if A, your database size is growing to roughly like 500 gigabytes plus, or B, you have a poor performance on your database disks. Because how the housekeeper is functioning, housekeeper is basically scanning the history tables, checking for which data should be deleted, and then performs delete operations in the database. And delete is pretty heavy, especially if the table is big, disks are slow. This delete is causing the housekeeper to be 100% busy for more the time. Let's say with the normal functioning of the housekeeper, it should not take like more than 3 or 4 minutes. But on some instances, you might see that the housekeeper is running, let's say you go to, I don't know if we will be able to see that, but monitoring graphs, internal process busy, housekeeper, you will find out that it's 100% for multiple hours, which is bad. An alternative for this is exactly the partitioning. When we are able to disable the housekeeper for the trends in the history, you still must leave it enabled for events and alerts because there is no reason to partition these tables. And what partitioning does, instead of deleting entries of the history that are older than we need in a table of, let's say, size 500 gigabytes or even multiple terabytes, it is partitioning all the data in days. So one partition is 1 day, and we specify that we want to keep 30 days. So when there is 31st partition, it is simply dropped. This is not causing any disk performance issue, any disk degradations, any Zabbix performance issues. It just happens like this. So partition is gone, history is gone. And how to do that without a timescale DB? You can create your own customized partitioning, or maybe you can have sort of Zabbix support official way how to partition your database, but it does create a little bit of management overhead. So those are some sort of scripts that you need to maintain. Maybe they will break. Maybe you will find some partitioning setup in some forum which is not very good, let's say it like that, and it will again break. You might just end up with losing a lot of history data. And Timescale adds this this functionality natively. So you just turn it in. Timescale is basically the same Postgres. You turn on the Postgres, apply the Timescale plugin, and define how many days do you want to keep, and everything is happening automatically. So this is the only benefit. We're getting compression, which allows us to save a disk space, which in the big installations can also save up some money if we want to keep like multiple terabytes of the data. And native partitioning. So if you are not familiar with some other solutions for MySQL or just for Postgres or whatever else, then this might be a good option. But I would not say that by running the Timescale DB, you will get like 20% performance increase than any other database engine. Absolutely not. So this is a pretty long answer to this question. And yeah, hi Touch Crew, and thanks for the tip. Getting back, so where we stopped. We stopped on how can we actually move this database to our Oracle Linux 8. And this is the only part that we have to do for this migration. And yeah, thank you for your explanation. You're welcome. If you have any other questions, might be related about migration, might be related to anything else, go ahead. That's why we're here. That's why we have a live question. So instead of posting everything in comments for a simple video, I'll try to answer everything that I can. So how to move this database. And what is also important pretty often, like if we are talking about some home setups, just, I don't know, lab environment, we don't really care about the data, right? We just want to test the functionality and stuff like that. So, but if we're on a production in our company, nobody really wants to lose history. And migration, especially, so migration will also include the upgrade and transition of the history data, which again might be up to terabytes or even more. Automatically you start to think that that will probably cause a lot of downtime, a lot of missed monitored data. And pretty often it is the main reason why it is hard to get some acceptance from the management to actually perform this upgrade. But believe it or not, without a big complexity, you can actually perform this migration and upgrade basically without a downtime. We could probably lose like 1 second worth of the data if everything is done correctly. So let's talk about how we can do that. We have this functioning Zabbix server on the CentOS 8, which is collecting the data right now, and we're drinking coffee and spinning up our Oracle Linux 8. We install the database. Where's my text? So what we do, just basically install MySQL server, and on Oracle Linux 8, this will install the MySQL 8. So you don't need to worry about adding the official repository. And we need to make a backup of our CentOS 8 database, Zabbix database, and the most recent backup is the better. So it would be actually very favorable if we can create a backup right before or during this migration or upgrade or whatever else. So we create a backup, we have it, then we need to move it to our new Oracle Linux server. I believe nobody needs an explanation like how can you actually move the backup. So just copy paste it through, I don't know, SCP or FTP or whatever that you use in your company. And if we're talking about a backup, also think about the utilities that you are using, because as example, MySQL dump is good for lab environments, good for home setups, but not good for production, large setups, large database. Better use Percona Extra Backup as example for MySQL. For MariaDB, I think it's not compatible anymore with the Percona Extra Backup, so they have some sort of their own backup utility. Just read the internet, which is better. Read about the difference from logical and physical backup types. And if you have small installation and you're still using MySQL dump, just add single, I think it was single, I actually don't remember, single transaction. I don't know if we have guys from the Zabbix support here in the chat that could confirm. So I think it was single transaction. Do that just to avoid a locking of the database tables and make sure that while you're performing this backup, your Zabbix server is still functioning and collecting the new data. So when we have a backup, just copy over it to the new server, and the faster you do all this operation, the easier it will be to avoid any downtime. Remember that right now everything is working. We're collecting the data. So then what we need to do is restore our backup here in our Oracle Linux. So I don't know, again, depending on database engine that you're using, either it's going to be MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, follow the commands of the database engine, restore the database. So right now we have functioning, Thomas, thank you. Yeah, about the Patreon. So there are quite a lot of changes over the time, and basically right now I think you cannot find anything valuable there. Everything that was available for subscription is available for free for everybody. So if you guys have not visited it, then just go ahead. And yeah, I don't post any comments there. Basically the only content that I make right now is a YouTube once per week, and I also tend to write some posts or just add some screenshots from the Zabbix and the LinkedIn, because there's pretty good conversion between these two platforms. Hi Dmitry, new to the Zabbix, and I just went through hell trying to set up a new Zabbix server on Ubuntu. For some reason I just kept hanging when getting to the step of installing the database schema with a Zcat, and this actually should be pretty easy. Like Zabbix, again, green button, download, Ubuntu, whatever else, and you already get all the steps. And the only reason why you may be hanging on this command is when you execute it, what it is doing, it is first of all extracting the schema from the create.sql.jz file and then importing it to your created Zabbix database, which is empty without any tables. And if you specify the user, password, and the database correctly, just like you created, then it is taking some time. Depending on the hardware specs of your system, it might be done over like 10, 15, 20 seconds. If it's pretty slow or there are some other issues, it might take even a minute, and it looks like a hanging process. So you basically type in this command, press enter, and new line appears without any text, without any like loading or whatever else, and it's just hanging. Just don't cancel it and wait until it finishes. This should be the only issue. Yeah, and make sure that you choose the correct username, password, and the database name. Finally, let's just sit for about 2 hours. Oh, there's the continue of this running zika command, and finally it worked. It was after battling the issue, which any idea if it was crashing? Well, 2 hours, that's something that should never happen. Usually it takes like 10 seconds. Yeah, I was just installing the Zabbix from the packages basically before the stream, and it took like, I think it was around 10 seconds, maybe less. So make sure that your system is not overloaded, and also including the disks. So, where did we stop? We stopped on the paint. Restoring the configuration data, right? Restoring the database on our system. And this continues the monitoring. So let's say the restore completed. How much time it will take, of course, again, depends on the hardware specs and on the size of your database. But let's say it's done within an hour. So what we need to do here, basically we have, let's say Zabbix, I don't know, 5.0 here, and we also have database of the Zabbix 5.0 here, which basically means that we have a Zabbix 5.0. What do we need to do? Yum install Zabbix server, MySQL or whatever else. Just make sure that you install the version 6.0. Install the front end, the Zabbix server. I don't know if you want upgrade agent for some reason. 6.0, point it to this database and start the Zabbix server. What will happen? It will start the automatic upgrade. So just tail the log, var log Zabbix underscore server.log, and it should go to the 100%. So when this is done, we have our existing instance of the Zabbix 5.0 upgraded to the Zabbix 6.0 and running on the Oracle Linux 8. But it is not monitoring anything. That's you should make the configuration so that it is not monitoring anything, and it basically means keep it somewhere outside of the internet so it is not accessing your, I don't know, network devices, servers, and whatever else, because this setup right now has same configuration as this one, same IP addresses, update intervals, items, hosts, whatever else, and it will try to monitor this instance. So this is the moment when you can actually what is usually done, change the IP address or change the DNS name. Well, yeah, usually IP address of the servers itself, let's say, depending where you run them, either the VMware or whatever else. So make this switch so that our Oracle Linux 8 server becomes receives the same IP address that previously was on a CentOS 8. And at that moment, we can switch off our old installation, and this Oracle Linux 8 continues the monitoring. And what about the data? So I talked that it's possible to achieve that with zero loss of the history. And what we have right here, so on this server, which is active right now, we have a history data from a moment when we made a backup here. Remember, which probably was couple of hours ago, again, depending on the size of the database. This database on our previous instance has all the history data till the moment when we made a switch over to the Oracle Linux 8. And this drawing start to look like a bit creepy, but okay. And we need to fill this gap. So the gap between the moment when we made a backup and a gap and between a moment when we actually started this Oracle Linux 8 setup and it began monitoring. Is Zabbix agent install required if I'm just doing a ping monitor? No, not really. If you're just using ICMP ping items, those are simple checks, and those are made by the Zabbix server or the Zabbix proxy. You can choose that, and you don't need Zabbix agent for that. so that's about it. And how to fill this gap? How can we fill this gap? Basically, what we need to do is go to our database. I'm losing my mouse. So go to our database of the CentOS 8, and I'll try to show some examples. So log into the MySQL console. Most likely you will have the database Zabbix, or I don't know, Zabbix production, whatever else. So just use Zabbix to log in inside the database. You can type in show tables, and you will find this list has grown pretty much since, I don't know, in the last years. I remember there was like 113 tables in the Zabbix a couple of years ago. So yeah, we're getting close to 200. And basically there are 7 tables that are related to history data. Well, 5 that are related to the history, this ones, and 2 that are related for the trend. So history is the raw data, and trend is a calculation of 1 hour of the history. So let's say, I don't know how to do the visualization. If in 1 hour we have data, I don't know, 1, 5, 10, 3, 5, those will be 5 values in a history table, but in the trends it will be 1 entry that will hold minimal value, which is 1, maximal value, which is 10, and which will hold the average of all these values. That is the trend, and it's inside those 2 tables. Why there are 5 tables and 2 for the trends? That's because the value type. So remember, when you are configuring any item inside a Zabbix, that's just a clean installation. So configuration hosts, I actually even don't remember where can we now create items. Who knows? I haven't touched the Zabbix for a while. So monitoring latest data here. Come on, guys, help me in the chat. Where can we add in items? I haven't used the Zabbix for a while. It's not in the configuration anymore. Configuration host. Ah, there we go. So yeah, items. Create an item. And every time we create an item, we need to choose a type of information. So numeric unsigned, float, character, log, or text, depending on what kind of value we're expecting from that host or from that item. And for each of these options, unsigned, float, character, log, text, there is a separate table in the database. Unsigned, log, string, text, and unsigned. This is for numeric. Do you ever have issues where the Zabbix log begins to fill up and you have to clear it to free up space? Well, it's hard for me to imagine what could happen with the Zabbix installation to spam the log so heavily that it eats up all the disk space on your server. Or maybe you have just, I don't know, 500 megs of the free disk space. Make sure that the debug level is default 3. So you can check it. Let me actually do it here. So duplicate tab. No, go away. So just open the Zabbix server config file in the etc Zabbix server conf. One of the first options is debug level. So if you have it increased from a default 3 to, let's say, 4 or 5, which is only for debugging purposes, that can spam up the log file pretty quickly. So the default is 3. And I'll definitely recommend to keep it on 3. And don't get it below, because then you can actually miss some important log lines, something dangerous or whatever else in the log file, right? Yeah, getting back, so trends and history. What we have in history right now, this is empty installations, so I'm not sure that we will actually have some data. We do, because we're monitoring the local host. So what columns do we have? We have item ID, which is representing to the item which have collected this data, the clock when we collected this data, value, and a nanoseconds. So basically what we need to do is grab a portion of the history data from all our history tables, all 5 of them, including the trends, where the clock is between the moment when we have the latest entry in our Oracle Linux 8 installation database. So you can check, you have to check that with the queries. And the moment, the upper moment, when we started receiving the data in our new server. And then we need to take this part of the history data, and most likely you would want to create a table like a history, let's say call it history migration, then insert with a query that portion of the history in the history underscore migration table, make a backup of this portion, which will include 5 tables of the history and 2 tables of the trends. Move it to your, again, with some SCP or whatever, Oracle Linux, and then just import this history portion to the Oracle Linux 8 database. And that's it. So at that moment, you have moved your Zabbix components to the Oracle Linux 8. You've upgraded to the Zabbix 6.0. Hopefully everything went fine with the upgrade itself. Hopefully the database schema is default one and correct without any issues. And yeah, then it should be fine. And that's it. But that is probably thinking that you might have like the simplest setup that's possible with a Zabbix without high availability. Of course, if you have an HA or... I have a question about M1 chip. Is there a way to monitor the new M1 chip? What exactly do you want to monitor? I know that we don't have official agent packages for the M1 chip, but it's still possible. I don't remember how exactly, but it is possible to run an agent on an M1. So you can monitor any operating system data as usually as in the previous versions. If you're referring to that. So yeah, depending on what exactly you want to monitor, it is possible to install an agent and collect the same data as previously. Yeah, so keeping the most simple CPU, RAM, drive. So yeah, you just need to get an agent. I'm really not sure if you can just easily, let me check into Zabbix.com. Xavix.com, download section, Zabbix agents, Mac. Yeah, it's for the AMD 64. I don't remember how to do that. I really don't, but it is possible. I don't know, you can try to reach me out in, what could be the best way? Find me in LinkedIn and hit me a message. I will try to get an answer for you. There was an option to do that, but I really don't remember how right now. Yeah, so getting back to migration, this is the most simplest architecture. If we have high availability cluster, Galera cluster or whatever else, of course it makes things more complicated because we also need to basically reconfigure the cluster itself with Rosetta 2 monitoring via Zabbix agent, yeah, as an option. I think there's more options than that, but I believe it's a matter of time when we'll actually release the agent package for the M1 silicon architecture. So I think we're good now with that. And yeah, replications, high availability, that of course brings additional complexity. And the only thing is, like, I really do believe that if administrators of the Zabbix, of the Linux machine, have set up all the HA and replication, then probably there should not be any issues regards it in terms of like moving everything to the new setup. Maybe you even have some plan or idea how to create the architecture a little bit differently to gain some benefits of your new installation. Or maybe you don't want to use anymore those PCS Sync HA utilities. You just want to use a native one, native high availability solution of the Zabbix server, which doesn't really, so it works only for the Zabbix server, right? Not for the front end. You cannot really do anything with the database. But how frequently do you have issues with the front end? Usually not. And still, outside of the Zabbix HA, you can have multiple front ends, have them behind a load balancer, and everything could be done in AWS configuration or in Azure or whatever else where you're running your machines. For the database, you just run the replication with the native replication type of the database engine that you're running. So if you're on the same MySQL 8, then probably we'll be talking about InnoDB cluster, which does require 3 nodes though, but it doesn't mean that you have to I have to install 3 same hardware specs machines with the same like big numbers of the memory and the CPU and good hardware. You can have just two servers for the actual database stuff and one for the arbiter node, which just making sure that that the nodes are up and running. There's no split brain between these nodes. And that's sort of it. I think maybe you guys have some questions. Yeah, I think I talked for like 15 minutes about this. And I believe it was hard to follow all this. Maybe still some questions or something unanswered. For Postgres high availability, I recommend Patrani. That's sort of what I would also want to recommend, despite the fact that I have never used it myself, and most likely I will never even try it because there's no such need for me anymore. But yeah, with the Postgres, it's pretty complicated because the native tools are way different than we are used to with the MySQL or MariaDB. The Postgres basically doesn't support the multi-master replication setup, and everything is all the previous installations that we did with the Postgres are based on the resource agents. And resource agents are sometimes written by some community or by somebody absolutely else, and they might be written 5 years ago and not maintained anymore. So that's always a big risk. And Patrani is like a new trend, and I've heard many good feedback from the Postgres users. I know that you can get a good trainings about it. There's definitely a lot of information, again, outside in YouTube or whatever else. Yeah, so that's a good option. Hi, Steve. You joined us just now. How's it going? We actually finished talking about the migration, and everybody are already sitting on a Zabbix 6.0 release candidate, still waiting for the stable release, which is going to be very soon, right? That's what we're saying for multiple months right now. And do you have any information about optional database updates, keys for the history tables? I see files, but this time, yeah. So the Zabbix 6.0 has optional database patch. So I have, where's my console? So it's here. So if I would do show create table history, we can see that, yeah, by default in a clean installation, there is already a primary key for item ID clock and nanoseconds. If you're running Zabbix before 6.0, most likely you don't have this line. If you do, then it was added manually either by you or by your database administrator, or maybe by some Zabbix administrator that was working in your company some years ago. By default, there's no primary key. And why it is required? Because some replications, as example, Galera cluster, also InnoDB cluster from MySQL 8, do require to have a primary keys on all the tables in a database that you're trying to replicate. And by default, history tables, I think also trends tables don't have them, and also DB version table. DB version is very small. Select everything from DB version. So yeah, select everything from DB version. So it basically keeps just a record of existing Zabbix database version, and yeah, when the Zabbix server is connecting to the database, it is checking if database is matching. If not, if this is outdated, then automatic upgrade happens. And previously, one of the options was to add these primary keys manually. So it's pretty simple. Just alter table history, add a primary key, and then specify the columns on which you want to have them. And if you have it only as an item ID and a clock, that is bad. This may cause some issues, and I would recommend to rework it, to add also a nanoseconds. What the primary key means is, getting back our notepad, is, let's say, if we have it on an item ID and a clock, what it means that we are not able to have two values from the same item in same time period, which is, let's say, 1201. So we can have a new value only every second. The clock is Unix time, and it moves by 1 second forward. And this is bad because we could also have a difference in nanoseconds. We could receive 10 values in 1201 with a different nanoseconds. That's why it is basically mandatory to add also primary key to NS. If you don't have it, what should you do? Does the primary key affect database partition? No. No, I think not. I cannot imagine how it could actually affect it. So what we should do if we just move to the Zabbix 6.0 and we are not sure if we want to do that, why it's not automatic, why we need to decide, because depending on the size of your database, of the history tables, and is usually on the performance of your disks, it may take quite a lot of time. And quite a lot of time, your Zabbix server might be unusable because this will be locking the history tables. And that's why it's up to you. If you want to do that, if you have this time for, how can we quit? There we go. If you have time for to apply this change to your database, then you just need to move to user share doc, Zabbix SQL scripts. This is the folder where you can find cd MySQL. So this is the folder where you can find the history, personal key, primary key, prepare.sql. And you just need to apply this SQL for your database. I would kind of recommend to do that, even if you don't want to. It is okay to do that. Let's say we perform an upgrade. We want to sit on it for a week, make sure that everything is fine. Then we have another maintenance window after a month, and then we plan to apply the primary keys. That's okay. Your Zabbix will still function absolutely fine without it, but I would recommend to add it. When? That's up to you. Maybe you want to schedule some time slot in I don't know, some night hours when it's not that important, or depending on your internal policies. You can also always make a backup of your database and try to apply it on the lab environment and just try to measure how much time it's going to take. But keep in mind that in a live instance, if you have monitoring going, of course, the load is way bigger. So that's about primary keys. Anything else? Some comments, some questions, feedback. How did you guys like the stream? Do you want to have this more than once? Do you want to have some additional live streams? Yeah, maybe some topics you would want to cover. I already have a video scheduled for top hosts widget. And yeah, so this year I plan to release it only once a week. For now, we'll see how it goes. With the live streams, it's actually a little bit easier probably. There are a lot of other problems that could happen, but yeah, it's free content. So the next Monday there will be a video about top hosts widget, which is a great functionality. Again, very anticipated. Many Zabbix users wanted to, instead of just seeing like thousands of latest data rows in monitoring latest data, just see, let's say, top 5 busy hosts in some host group which has 10,000s of hosts. And it is very performance efficient widget, so it is not causing any performance issues. So it's awesome. And configuration is usually for the widgets is pretty simple. So yeah, for those who are not subscribed, definitely do that. That's the best way how you can support all of this stuff. And yeah, wait for other videos. I was getting stuck trying to use PS key. Can you show me where to put the PS key on the Zabbix server? On the Zabbix server, you don't even have to put it. You have to put it on the agent or proxy, depending which connection do you want to encrypt. And in the Zabbix server part, you only have to do that in the front end. So let's say if you're doing that with the host, then click on the host, encryption, PS key, untick this, no encryption, PS key, and write in identity, same as you have in your agent, and well, of course, PS key, also copy paste, make sure that there's no extra spaces. And if you want to make it between the proxies, then it's administration proxies, and when you're creating, there's also encryption tab. So if it is active proxy, then of course there's no way to configure an encrypt connection to the proxy from the server, because proxy is always connecting to the server. Do you have something for front-end modules? No, never had any information, never had any hands-on use cases. Well, there are a lot of use cases, but no, this requires some development skills, which I definitely don't have, so cannot really comment anything about it. Is a PSK key even necessary if it's a local monitoring anyway? That's the choice that you have to make. Sometimes it's pushed by management or a customer or, I don't know, security department. Encryption takes a little bit of the performance. It makes communication slower because there's also no handshake caching between the two components. So every connection, every time the Zabbix connects to the agent to poll for the data, it basically tries to establish a new handshake between these components. I think it causes like 20% degradation of the performance, could be something around that. But it's definitely not like you add encryption and everything starts to work slow and you cannot figure out what's going on. So if you're worried about the security, then yeah, why not? And even a local monitoring anyway, well, yeah, it's of course better than the public internet, but still there are smart guys, and sometimes it's not that complicated to get access to your local network. And if you don't have any encryption in between of the components, it's easily to sniff any data by just using TCP dump as example. See, that's what I wasn't getting. I was looking for a config file on the backend. Yeah, the config file is for the server. You don't need to touch it, only for the agent or the proxy. I copy, thank you for your help. Trying to take advantage while you're on low. Yeah, go ahead. I will probably end up soon in 10 minutes or so, so we started a little bit late. Actually, how many users do we have online? 22. That's pretty interesting. I was not expecting to get, well, honestly saying, I was thinking that we'll get something roughly about 22 users online. But the beginning was not very promising. YouTube doesn't show how many persons applied for wait for stream or add a notification. I don't remember how it was called. And basically the only thing that you can see is how many users have their, right now, the YouTube in front. And yeah, I think it was like 2 or 3, 5 minutes before the stream. So I was sort of also expecting there will be nobody here. And getting some comments and questions is basically one of the main purposes of this streams. Because in any videos, I always say, like, if you have any questions or comments or whatever else, just post them in the comments of this video. But I have probably around 100 videos right now. And actually today or yesterday we reached 8,000 subscribers, which is super cool. And it's just thanks to you guys. So appreciate you for all the support. Never knew that you're planning to do the session. Just got a link in your Discord. Yeah, so I actually forgot about the Discord. And the thing is that I'm not using a Discord myself anymore for I don't know what reasons. I just don't have it on my screen. And I posted in LinkedIn, and I posted in Reddit, and also in Facebook Zabbix monitoring group, like 30 minutes before the actual stream. I will try to fix myself for the next time and being more active in the Discord, because I've sort of have the invitation for the channel in the description, but I haven't been there for a while, so hopefully you're not missing me there. I like it. That's good. Next time, please announce it. Yeah, I will try. And also, like, you can follow the LinkedIn. Mostly, especially this year. Again, as I mentioned in the middle, the LinkedIn community is very well integrates together with the YouTube. So there are a lot of people who like Zabbix content, and a lot of shares, a lot of attention, and a lot of views. So I also try to publish everything that I have in a YouTube, in a LinkedIn, and also not limited to that. So I post about some stuff about the video ideas that I want to want to make videos about. And also I will use the opportunity to where's my YouTube channel? So basically in my YouTube channel, remember, for those who are following, we had a Zabbix Talks session with open source ICT solution, which is a certified Zabbix partner. We basically had, I don't know even how to call it, I guess it's sort of a podcast. And let me try to bring it up. So just youtube.com Zabbix open source solution. Yeah, there it is. This one. If you haven't seen it, then just go ahead. 30 minutes talking about a Xavix, an upcoming release of the Xavix 6.0. So I think it's also interesting thing to talk about, not only about the technical tutorials, how you can configure this, how you can configure that, but also just I don't know, just talk about monitoring, and maybe not necessarily about Zabbix itself, maybe some other tools, some other experience. If you guys have some interesting stories to share and you're able to speak English, at least in some level, then I'm sure we can figure something out. You don't have to be like, I don't know, a star or whatever. Just want to talk, want to make sort of similar to this that we had. Write me in, I don't know, anywhere where you can find me. And yeah, tell me what do you want to do? What do we want to talk about? And we'll figure out the time when it's suitable for both of us. We usually do the Skype session and I record everything. So just a free conversation without any script, without any prepared questions or topics, whatever, just free form conversation. We might even add some beers to this talks. And yeah, then a quick editing and we published it online for everybody. Patricia, thank you for donation. Nice to see you here. So wait, where's my chat? Chat is here. And this is the stream. Yeah, so if anybody want to take part in the episode 2, then you're welcome to reach me out. If not, then yeah, I don't know if we will have the second 2, if we will have episode 2. I write you later on WhatsApp, we can take a beer. Yeah, and we can do that even without a Zabbix, right? But we can also talk about other stuff. So, yep, we'll be waiting for some message from you. And this is the main idea for this year. Probably before we wrap up, I will just tell, like, if you are following me for a while, then you have most likely noticed that previously last year and 2 years ago, it was like no content at all. Then you get like 10 videos in a month. And then I'm gone again for 6 months. And it was like 2 or 3 these moments of big production work in a year. And it happens very simply. You just feel like very motivated to create some new videos. You have a lot of topics in mind and you want to make everything right away, like 2-3 videos a day. Then you publish all of them. And after 2 or 3 weeks, you don't feel this motivation anymore. And maybe you're out of topic ideas, and then you're just, I'm going to skip this week, and then there's another week, and then you have 2 months without any content. So this year we're a bit dropping the expectations of this channel, and yeah, as I said, I'm planning to release just one video, either a video about a tutorial like Zabbix stuff, either a little live session when we can talk about all the stuff, or maybe, yeah, the Zabbix talks when we again just talk about the monitoring with some guests in this channel. And hopefully the big plan is to keep the space for all the year and then see where this goes with the channel growth. And again, your support is the main reason why all of this is happening. And thank you once again for everybody who joined today. So I think we're close to 1 hour, which is what I was expecting to do here. So last minute for any questions, feedback, whatever else. And if not, then we're good. We can check, I don't know what we can check. What's interesting, what we can talk, sorry, not, yeah, whatever. What we can talk about some next live sessions or whatever is Zabbix roadmap. So we're still waiting for the Zabbix 6.0. but the roadmap doesn't sleep, and there is a Zabbix 6.2 roadmap, which is also very interesting. A lot of things to talk about. I don't know. I'd rather do this on some stream or recording with somebody else instead of talking on my own through all this list, which is pretty extensive and technical. Thank you, Dmitry. Have a good day. See you next time. See you next time, guys. So follow the news, and I don't know how often do we want to make these live streams. I was thinking, like, depending on the success rate of this stream, maybe once a month, so we could have like 3 technical videos, 1 live stream. Maybe if this goes pretty well, we can do it even outside of the regular schedule of the videos. I don't know, I'll think about it. So, okay, I will say the last time. Thank you guys for participating. Thank you for all your comments and questions. I hope that I bring some side in terms of migration and upgrade to the Zabbix 6.0. Thank you for all your tips and donations, and we'll meet Monday. Don't forget to check the Monday when I will release the video about top hosts widget in the dashboard in the Zabbix 6.0. And yeah, we'll keep in touch in all the other platforms. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for your support, and goodbye. I'm shutting down the stream. Thank you. Bye.